If you turned on the news this week, you'd think the sky was falling. You'd think the world was ending. Cable news, talking heads, and corporate politicians are out in the streets rending their garments in actual mourning, all because three Democratic socialists won a primary in New York. Stephen A. Smith had a full meltdown on ESPN about free stuff. Stephen Miller went on Fox and called it a cancer. The New York Post ran the cover, "The Young and the Clueless." The president himself stood in the Oval Office and called them communists. They are acting like the Bolsheviks stormed Manhattan. It is an embarrassing, pathetic level of panic. And here's the thing. They ran this exact movie before. When New York elected Mamdani mayor, they swore the city would become a smoldering crater. They promised the apocalypse. Well, last I checked, New York City is still here. And it's doing better than ever, actually. The crater never came. This is the second time they've promised the end of the world over the same word. So before we all lose our minds over young people supposedly wanting free stuff, I want to ask one simple multi-trillion-dollar question. Who is actually getting all the free stuff right now? Here's the truth nobody says out loud. America already is a socialist country. It already has government-run single-payer healthcare. It already has a guaranteed government income you can't outlive. You just have to be over the age of 65 to get it. That's the catch. While they brand us clueless and lecture us about avocado toast and bootstraps, older Americans are, by the numbers, the most subsidized demographic in this country, and it's not close. The people screaming the loudest about socialism today are the single biggest beneficiaries of socialism in America, perhaps ever in the world. Let me show you the receipts. Two programs, Social Security and Medicare, eat up more than a third of the entire federal budget. That's not my opinion, that's the Congressional Budget Office's own number. Social Security is about $1.6 trillion a year, Medicare is about $1 trillion. Together, 37% of everything the federal government spends annually for one group of people. And at the federal level, we spend nearly 6 times more per senior than we spend per child. 6 to 1. So the next time someone tells you the problem with this country is lazy young people who want a handout, the most subsidized, most entitled people in America, by a mile, are the old. The handout generation isn't the one drowning in student debt. It's the one cashing the single biggest government check ever devised, while telling everyone younger to pull themselves up by their bootstraps. And this isn't some natural law of how the world works. Compared to other rich countries, the United States tilts its spending towards the elderly more than almost all of them do. We spend more than twice as much per person on the old as on the young, and at the federal level, it's 7 to 1. This was a choice. They made it, and they made it for themselves. Don't take it from me. Take it from Scott Galloway, NYU business professor, no radical, no Marxist, who put it bluntly. Everything we do is nothing but a subtle transfer of wealth from young people to old people, and we act like it's just the natural order of things. It isn't. It was built on purpose. When baby boomers were under 40, they held 13% of the country's wealth. Millennials under 40, under 6%. Now here's where they reach for the one defense they've got. But I earned it. I paid in. That's not socialism. Okay, 2 answers. First, let's look at what the anti-socialists actually believe, in their own words, in the polling. 70% of Republicans view Social Security and Medicare favorably. 80% of Republicans oppose cutting Medicare. And here's the kicker. A majority of Republicans say the government should spend even more on Social Security. Not less, more. So this is the actual position of the modern conservative. Socialism is a cancer, a menace, the end of America, except for the 2 largest socialist programs in the entire federal budget, which they support by margins of 70 and 80% and would very much like expanded. Second, there's a scholar at Cornell, Suzanne Mettler, who has a name for how they pull this off. She calls it the submerged state. Government benefits deliberately designed to feel like something you earned, like a private account with your name on it, so you never have to admit you're living on the very thing you claim to despise. Social Security was built to feel that way. The I earned it feeling isn't a fact, it's a design feature. And on Medicare specifically, it isn't even true. The average person draws out far more than they ever paid in. It's a transfer dressed up in the language of a 401k. The moment you say you earned your government guaranteed healthcare, you've conceded the whole game, that the government should guarantee healthcare. Congratulations. That's the socialist argument. Now go say it to the 30-year-old who can't afford insulin. And if you don't believe me, answer one question. If Social Security is a vault you fill up over a lifetime and then draw down, then explain how the first person who was ever enrolled in Social Security collected money from it. Her name was Ida Mae Fuller. She paid into the system for 3 years, $24.75 total, and she collected benefits for the next 35 years, almost $23,000, $900 back for every dollar she put in. How does that happen if it's your money in your vault? It doesn't. There was no vault. The very first Social Security check in history was a transfer from the workers to a retiree, from the young to the old, because that is the only thing it has ever been. The thing you're calling socialism when the 33-year-old wants healthcare, you've been living on it since the day you retired. And if you want to watch the submerged state defend itself, look at the most powerful lobby in America. Not big oil, not Wall Street, not APAC. Fortune named it the most powerful political lobby in the country, and it's AARP, the retirees lobby, 38 million members. When the government tried to trim Social Security phone services last year, AARP fired off 2 million emails to Congress in 2 weeks, and the government folded completely. They can melt the Capitol switchboard on command. Think about what that actually is. 38 million people pooling their dues, collectively bargaining for their benefits, mobilizing by the millions to protect what's theirs. That's a union, the most powerful one in the country. The same people who call it communism and bitch and moan when a Starbucks tries to organize have built the most ruthless, class-conscious solidarity machine in American history. They just don't call it that. They call it AARP. AARP spent $36 million to stop the government from setting their retirement fee. Think about that. If the private market is so dynamic, so efficient, so superior, and socialism is such a cancerous evil, why are they fighting this hard to stay on the government dole? Now, watch this. Here's what AARP brags about on its own website right now, listed next to helping create Medicare. Among its proudest achievements, it celebrates, quote, the protection of Social Security from privatization. And this isn't ancient history. Last August, 2025, AARP put out a press release condemning a sitting Republican Treasury Secretary for so much as cracking the door to privatization. Their words: "We have fought any and all efforts to privatize Social Security, and we will continue to." And when George W. Bush actually tried to privatize Social Security in 2005, Republican president, Republican Congress, full control, AARP spent $36 million that year, one of the biggest war chests in its history, to strangle that effort in the crib. It worked. So here's my question. If the free market is so dynamic, so efficient, so superior, and socialism is so evil, why is the largest organization of conservatives in America spending a fortune to keep their retirement locked inside a government program? Why are they fighting so hard to stay on the government dole? Why won't they demand their freedom? You'd almost think they know something. You'd almost think they know the government program is the better deal, and they intend to keep it for themselves while calling you a communist for wanting health care. The free market is for you, the safety net is for them. But here's where it goes from unfair to insane. Because that giant Medicare number isn't just keeping seniors out of poverty. Oh, no, no, no. A big chunk of it is getting strip mined by private insurance companies and spent on stuff you would not believe. Quick explainer, because it matters. There are two kinds of Medicare. Traditional Medicare is the public version. The government pays your doctors directly for medicine. Then there's Medicare Advantage, the privatized version built up under George W. Bush, where the government hands a private insurer a lump sum for every senior they sign up, and the insurer keeps whatever it doesn't spend on care. Public money, private company, private profit. And the size of that lump sum depends on how sick your enrollees look on paper. So guess what the insurers learned to do? A New York Times investigation built on Justice Department fraud lawsuits laid it out. 8 of the 10 biggest Medicare Advantage insurers padded their bills. Kaiser Permanente pulled doctors in and pushed them to add diagnoses to patients they hadn't even seen and rewarded the ones who found enough new diseases with bottles of champagne. United Health told staff to dig through old records for more illnesses, and when they couldn't find enough, they sent them back to try again. Fake diagnoses, diseases that may never have existed, invented to bill the taxpayer more. The bill for this, according to Congress's own nonpartisan watchdog, $83 billion in overpayments every year. That's how much more we pay for the privatized version than we'd pay if those seniors were just in regular public Medicare, which, by the way, delivers more actual care. More money in, less medicine out. The private version is paid 22% more than public Medicare. That's the $83 billion. And it spends 9% less on actual medical care. Let that sink in. We pay a premium for the privatized version, and it delivers less medicine. So what do the insurers do with all that skimmed taxpayer cash? They use it as bait. They turn it into perks to lure in the healthiest, most profitable seniors. And the perks are where I lost my mind. Look at this. This is a real ad from a real Medicare plan broker. And look at how they're selling it. Yes, it's true. You really can get reimbursed for that. Exclamation points. They know it is insane. They're selling it in the exact voice of a guy on late night TV pitching a knife that can cut through a penny. Except this isn't an infomercial. It's a private company using your tax dollars to buy a retiree golf clubs. I repeat, they are using tax dollars to buy boomers fucking golf clubs. And golf clubs are just the start. Here's the actual menu of taxpayer-funded country club perks, exclusively for boomers. Golf clubs, greens fees, ski lift passes, snowshoes, mountain bikes, Apple Watches, Fitbits. If a 25-year-old asked the government for a mountain bike and an Apple Watch to stay active, Fox News would have a brain aneurysm on live television. But when a boomer does it, it's an earned entitlement. So spare me the fucking lecture. Socialism doesn't work? It seems to work pretty damn well when it's buying you a new set of irons with my tax dollars, doesn't it? Pay for your own fucking golf clubs, boomer. Golf clubs, horseback riding lessons, free Apple Watches on government money for seniors, while they lecture us about socialism and the evils of free stuff and asking for handouts you didn't deserve. But it's okay. You can reimburse them for an Apple Watch on my dime via tax collection. That's fine. That's not socialism. That's not free stuff. That's good. That's fine. And understand what this actually is. This isn't grandma running a scam. This is privatization working exactly the way privatization always works. A private middleman inserted into a public program, overbilling the taxpayer and spending the difference on golf clubs to recruit the next paycheck. They told us the free market would run Medicare better. It built a fraud machine, delivered less care, and bought somebody a 5-iron with your money. The public version is cheaper and doesn't do any of this. So tell me again which one's the failure. And let's not be cute about what's really going on here, because it's the same thing it's always been. Ronald Reagan didn't invent a generic welfare cheat. He invented the welfare queen, a black woman in Chicago, and the strapping young buck buying T-bone steaks with your tax dollars. Those were his words. The image was the point. You want to see how fast the machine spins up? Go back to the Obama phone. One viral video, a poor black woman says she got a free phone, and conservative media lost its mind for a decade. Obama phone, socialism, handouts, the end of America. Oh my God! Never mind that you need a phone to get a job, to get a call back, to exist in the modern economy at all. Never mind that it started as a Reagan program and got expanded to cell phones under George W. Bush. The second there was a blackface to staple it to, it became unacceptable socialism on your doorstep. That's how fast they move when the face is right. So where's that energy now? Where's Trump golf clubs? Where's Trump snowshoes? Where's the Trump Apple Watch? Billions of dollars a year, public money, buying comfortable retirees, sporting goods, horseback riding lessons every single year. And the same people who screamed and whined about one poor woman getting a phone for 10 years? Silence. Not a peep. They'll never call it a Trump phone. They will never run this clip for a decade. And you know exactly why. Because the outrage was never about the cost. It was never about the waste. It was never about free stuff. White and retired, you earned it, congratulations. Black and broke, communism on the doorstep. Same government money, opposite reaction. The only variable that ever changed, the only one, was the face attached to the benefit. So let me say the part they spent 50 years training you not to say. The welfare queen was always a lie. But if you want to find someone actually living large on a government check they didn't earn, living high on the hog on government cheese, someone pulling thousands out of a system they barely paid into, someone demanding the taxpayer fund their lifestyle while sneering at everyone else as a freeloader, look at the comfortable retiree getting his golf clubs reimbursed by Medicare. That's the welfare queen. They were describing themselves the whole time. Reagan held up a mirror and told you it was a window. They are literally the welfare queens they warn about. Young people tax dollars being spent on boomer fucking golf clubs, and they have the chutzpah to lecture us about free fucking stuff. Unbelievable. And it doesn't stop at the federal budget. Look in their own backyards. These self-described capitalists worship the free market right up until somebody tries to build an apartment building on their street. Then they sprint to the government to stop it, begging for help. There's no version of the free market where the state forbids you to build housing on your own land. But that's the entire project of suburban zoning. Older homeowners using the raw power of government to block construction, choke supply, and pump up the values of the homes they already own. And then there's the tax shield. In California, Prop 13 freezes a homeowner's property taxes near their original purchase price. So a retiree who bought in 1985 pays taxes on their property like it's still 1985, while the 35-year-old who buys the identical house next door today pays based on today's price. Same street, same schools, same fire department. The young family pays multiples of what the retiree next door pays and subsidizes the retiree's share of the neighborhood. And before anybody says, that's just crazy liberal California, Texas does the same thing. The reddest, most free market, no income tax state in the country freezes senior school taxes the day they turn 65. No income limit, no cap on home value. A retiree in $1 million house gets the same frozen bill as a struggling senior in a bungalow. And they just made it bigger last year with 77% of voters saying yes. Blue state, red state, doesn't matter. The second it benefits older homeowners, the free market gets switched off. And the debt my generation is buried under? Same story. States used to fund public universities. Boomers went to college for pennies. Then, as that generation aged, state budgets got eaten by elder care and pensions. And rather than tax older voters, states gutted college funding instead. They stopped paying for the young to learn so they could keep paying for the old to retire. And then they mailed us the bill with interest. You want the free market? Then live it. Let the towers go up on your block. Pay tax on what your house is actually worth. But they won't. Ruthless market efficiency for our wages, ironclad government price controls for their property values. They cut the fingers off the invisible hand of the free market the second it reaches for their neighborhood. And to be precise, because this matters, I'm not talking about the broke 74-year-old getting by on a $1,400 check in a one-bedroom. That person is exactly who the safety net is for. I'm talking about the comfortable, paid-off, asset-rich retiree pulling Medicare worth far more than he ever put in, calling a rent freeze communism. It was never just about age. It's a posture, and the posture has a price tag. So let's talk reality. Stop pretending we live in an economics textbook where a country is either 100% capitalist or 100% socialist. The fairy tale for simpletons. America has never been a purely capitalist country. Nowhere has. Because a country with no government, no courts, no roads, no contracts isn't a libertarian paradise. It's Somalia. It's warlord territory. The stateless free market utopia exists. We just don't call it a utopia. We call it a failed state. Every functioning country on earth is a mixed economy. We have always lived in a mixed economy. We always will. The only real question, the only one, is what the mix is and who it's for. And right now, the people screaming loudest about socialism are the ones it's for. Show me one country anywhere in history that was 100% capitalist with not one single government program anywhere. Go on, I'll wait. What country is this? Fictional country of the capitalist imagination. Get fucking real. And to be crystal clear, because people are going to try to put words in my mouth, I'm not saying cut grandma's Social Security. Even Scott Galloway, the guy who said this whole thing is a wealth transfer, calls Social Security a fantastic program. He just says it should be targeted. That's all I'm saying. Guarantee everyone the floor. healthcare, retirement, dignity as a right. Tax the people at the top who don't need the handout. On the front end, through the tax code, not by carving them out of the program. And kill the privatized scam that's buying them golf clubs in the first place. That's not less socialism. That's socialism that actually reaches the people who need it instead of socialism for the country club. Because look at what we're actually asking for. We're not asking for golf clubs, not ski passes, not snowshoes, not Apple Watches, not mountain bikes. We're asking for a home we can afford, healthcare that doesn't bankrupt us, and the faint possibility of maybe one day being able to afford to have a kid. Maybe. They get socialism for golf clubs. We're begging for socialism for survival. And they have the nerve to call us the entitled ones. So here's my dare. If you truly, honestly believe socialism is a cancer, pure evil that fails everywhere it's ever been tried, then your number one priority, your first move, should be to abolish the biggest socialist program on the books. Not reform it, not trim it, abolish it. Or privatize it. Hand it to Wall Street and the private insurance market the way you swear everyone else should have to live. You want to lecture us about being a rugged individual who never took a handout? About how millennials and Gen Z are lazy and entitled and just want free stuff? Then forego your free stuff. Cancel it. Balance the budget on your back, not mine. Throw the olds out into the street the way this country did before we invented Social Security in the first place. Do that, and the next time a boomer lectures me about the evils of socialism, I'll actually listen. Show us what a real anti-socialist looks like. But you won't. The room goes dead silent. Because here's the secret you already know. Abolishing it would be a catastrophe for you. And you know it. That's the tell. I fucking dare you anti-socialist motherfuckers. Call up your Republican congressman tomorrow and tell them, I'm not voting for you unless you abolish the biggest socialist program in the federal budget. Tomorrow. Trump, abolish socialism. Abolish the number one most expensive socialist program in the budget, Social Security. Abolish Medicare. It's socialism. Socialism is so bad we have to get rid of it. Think about it. George W. Bush actually tried to privatize Social Security back in 2005, and he did it with control of both houses of Congress at the peak of his power. The same setup Trump has right now. There's no obstacles. Nothing is standing in the way. If privatizing Social Security and Medicare were such a good idea, if socialism really were the cancer they say it is, this would be the easiest, most popular thing in the world for them to do. Their number one priority. Instead, it's the number one exception to their entire ideology. When Bush tried it, the most powerful lobby in America, AARP, the lobbying army of the exact same people who recoil at the word socialism, spent $36 million to strangle it in the crib, and they brag about it. Read their own words. We have fought any and all efforts to privatize Social Security, and we will continue to. Why? Why would you fight to privatize it? If privatization is always better and socialism is cancer, you should be fighting to privatize it. They aligned by the tens of millions and spent every dollar of political capital they had to make damn sure their government healthcare and their government retirement stayed exactly where they are. Public, guaranteed, and growing. And none of this is new. Go back to 2009, town hall in South Carolina. An angry man stands up, points at his congressman, and shouts 6 words that explain this entire country. Keep your government hands off my Medicare. His own congressman had to stop and gently explain to him that Medicare is the government. It always was. And that man wasn't a punchline. He was the prophecy. Drain the swamp, slash the budget, government is the problem. All of it traces back to a guy screaming at the government to keep its hands off his government check. 17 years later, he is still the loudest voice in the room, and he is still not asking for his own benefits to be cut, only yours. So square the circle for me. Child care for millennials and their kids? Unthinkable! Socialism! Oh, a nightmare! How dare you even ask? But 37% of the federal budget go into government health care, horseback riding lessons, Apple Watches, snowshoes, and golf clubs for seniors, paid for with my tax dollars. That's a sacred God-given right beyond questioning. That's the socialism they support. Well, they say you can't have fucking healthcare. If socialism really were so evil, they'd want theirs gone first. Instead, they built an army to defend it. They don't hate socialism, they love it. They just don't want to share it. It comes down to one line and one line only. Socialism for me, but not for thee. Do as I say, not as I do. Boomers are the real socialists, and it's about time somebody said it out loud.
Socialism is a scare word they have hurled at every advance the people have made in the last 20 years. Socialism is what they call public power. Socialism is what they call Social Security. Socialism is what they call farm price supports. Socialism is what they call bank deposit insurance. Socialism is what they call the growth of free and independent labor organizations. Socialism is their name for almost anything that helps all the people.